So yeah, Disney has a pretty bad realism problem that I've been talking about lately. I've talked about how they tried to make Sebastian and Flounder a bit too real in The Little Mermaid, and it's ventured into the uncanny valley territory. I've mentioned how I didn't like the live-action Lion King reboot because they went too realistic and took all the emotion out of the animals' performance. And now, after seeing Peter Pan and Wendy, they did it again here too. They were so focused on making this movie so real, so dark, so gritty, that I feel like they took a lot of the magic and charm out of this movie. And even though I don't think it's a bad film overall, I do think it's not going to be what many people are expecting or wanting from a Peter Pan film. Let me explain. So first, I have to say again, one of the biggest complaints I have with this movie is that it is way too dark. Like, I don't understand why they took this classic children's fairy tale, a story that's often associated with bright, fun adventure films, but instead with this one, they decided to make it look very depressing and very gloomy and dark. And I'm not just complaining that the movie looks dark at night, I'm also talking about the fact that there's not much contrast there. Like, the actors just kind of blend into their backgrounds, and it just looks visually unappealing to me. Even once they leave London and they actually get to Neverland, Neverland itself is honestly not much better. Even though that the lights are on and it's during daytime most of the time, they still chose to make Neverland like the most bland, boring looking place ever. It doesn't look magical at all. It just looks like someone's backyard, or like they're just on a random island off the coast of Scotland somewhere. Like, it doesn't look like a fantasy place that kids would want to travel to and live in. It just looks kind of blah. And that's one of the main issues with this film, is that I feel like in its quest for realism, they forgot to add a lot of magic and charm that the original had to it. And I think that really weighs the movie down. The director has talked about wanting to do something different with his Peter Pan version because there has already been so many other Peter Pan versions in the past. And while I understand that sentiment, and I actually applaud him for wanting to push himself and try to think outside of the box, I think he thought so far out of the box that he made a Peter Pan movie that's probably unrecognizable to most people. For example, one thing that he did was change the relationship between Hook and Peter. In this story, Hook and Peter used to be lost boys together before Peter Pan kicked Hook out of Neverland because Hook missed his mother. No, I'm not kidding. Let me say that again. Peter and Hook were lost boys together. They were close best friends. But then Peter Pan kicked him out of Neverland, kicked Hook out of Neverland just because he said he missed his mother. So this story kind of makes Peter out to be a bit of a jerk, to be honest. And by the end of the movie, I was feeling a lot more sympathetic towards Hook than I was the kids. And that's not really how this story is supposed to play out. Because yes, Disney does what they do a lot lately, and it's that they try to really empathize and make Hook seem like a very soft kind of villain. Like, you're very much supposed to empathize with him and his tragic backstory, and I'm really tired of that trope. As good as I thought Jude Law was in this role, and I really thought he brought his all with what he was given, I'm just really mad that Disney tried to yet again make their villain seem sympathetic and like this emo soft boy, when I really liked the original Captain Hook, the one that was a lot more flamboyant. And we would have this little dynamic with Peter Pan where they would have cool hijinks with each other, and that was part of the charm of the original movie. All of that is gone in this one. It's not there. And the actor that plays Peter Pan, not to be mean towards the child actor, but to be honest, he was not the best. He kind of delivered a lot of his lines in the same sort of monotone manner. He didn't really give much expression to much of anything at all, actually. I kind of felt like he had no charisma, where the original Peter Pan was known for being very silly and very, had a huge personality. This was not this Peter Pan. He was a very kind of chill dude in a way that he just kind of delivered everything as very matter of fact. And then poor Tinkerbell is hardly in the movie. All they have Tinkerbell do in this movie is basically react to things and occasionally sprinkle magic on stuff when the plot needs her to. That's really all she does in this movie. And the director himself actually said that the reason he didn't even give her sparkles is because he didn't understand where the sparkles were coming from. He was like, how does that work? That doesn't make sense. And I think that's so dumb, because it's magic. It's not supposed to make sense. It's just magic. This sort of cavalier approach to the magic and in the world of Peter Pan is pretty much how he approached everything in this movie, not just Tinkerbell. If he didn't think it was realistic enough, he didn't want to add it. And I think that's why we barely see any mermaids in this film, except for one shot. There's really hardly any magic in this Neverland place besides what Tinkerbell brings. I mean, there's really hardly any magic in this movie at all. If there is any magic and charm, it's the sort of melancholy magic that you would find in, say, like a movie like E.T., especially in its sadder moments. It's very sad, but there's still like a very childlike magic and wonder to the film. If there's any magic at all, that's the kind of magic that's in this movie, because it's a very melancholy, sad movie. You could tell that the director, David Lowery, really cared about the theme of death and aging and mortality, and like he was making all these grand metaphors about life and growing up, and I understand that is part of what Peter Pan is about, but I feel like that was really David Lowery's main focus in this movie, because it is just constantly like existential terror the entire time. And you're just like, yeah, I get it, we're all gonna die one day, I get it. But despite all of this, I actually do like the movie quite a bit. I'm surprised. I was able to, I would say after the first act of the movie, just kind of like put my brain aside and accept that this was not going to be the Peter Pan movie that I wanted or expected, and just kind of let it wash over me for what it was. And what it is very much just a very somber coming-of-age tale starring a group of kids that kind of wander around in the wilderness, and occasionally they run into a pirate or a Native American. That's pretty much what this movie is, more than it is anything resembling like a classic Peter Pan story. If you can accept it for that and like want to open yourself up to a more like deeper story, because there are layers to this film that I appreciated, you might be able to like this movie. But if you want a fun adventure film for kids where you can get lost in a cool Neverland like in Hook or the 2003 Peter Pan movie, this is not that. This is very much not that. So if you're coming into this movie expecting that, you're probably not going to like this film at all, because it's just the very definition of subverting expectations for the sake of realism, which I know is not something a lot of people like. Overall, it has some pretty decent action, especially at the very end when they're fighting on the captain's ship. I thought that was pretty neat, I guess. Jude Law's performance is genuinely very good and very moving. Again, he's not the very flamboyant, fun villain that we got to know, but for what he does, I appreciated it. And again, I at least do respect the director for trying to go for bold choices, one of which was killing off Peter Pan around the end of the second act. I'm not kidding, Peter Pan dies in this movie. There's like a whole like good minute where the camera just like sits on Peter Pan's dead lifeless body on the ground before Tiger Lily like resuscitates him, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? They just kill off a kid? Does Disney just show me a kid's body on the ground? But yes, it does happen. So there are some pretty big swings in this movie. I do respect that, but I also think there are some pretty big misses too, which is why I can't say this is a perfect movie or this is a movie that I would recommend to everyone. Because if you're not into a sad, somber Peter Pan movie where Peter Pan literally dies for like a couple minutes, this is not the movie for you. Well, what do you guys think? Now that you guys have heard my thoughts, I want to hear your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of Peter Pan and Wendy. Have you seen the movie? Do you plan on seeing it? Please let me know. Also, again, please make sure that you like the video. It really does help the algorithm. Every like sends a message to Disney that you want them to change and like do better with their movies, so please make sure you like the video. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I post videos multiple times a week, so please make sure you never miss out on one of those. Now, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.